For more than 200 years, we've had a story about Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. We've been told it's the greatest love story ever told. But what if that's not really what the book is about? What if that's a huge misreading? I mean, it's a cultural landmark, right? It's basically the blueprint for every single romantic comedy that's ever been made. You know, the drill enemies, two lovers, two stubborn people overcoming all their flaws to find their one true match. But here's an idea. What if the romance, as central as it seems, is actually a kind of Trojan horse? It's the shiny package that Austen uses to deliver a much deeper, frankly more unsettling investigation into how incredibly hard, maybe even impossible, it is to truly know another person. So that's what we're gonna dig into. We're gonna treat this book less like a romance and more like a brilliant investigation into how we judge people. We'll look at how first impressions are basically flawed data, how different characters use totally different ways of thinking, and how Austen very cleverly tricks us, the readers, into making the very same mistakes. And then we'll ask why this 200-year-old problem feels more relevant now than ever. Okay, so let's just reframe this. Austen isn't just writing about who marries whom. She's using the high-stakes world of Regency marriage, where one wrong move could ruin you as a perfect laboratory. A lab to run a pretty radical experiment in human perception. So the real tension in Pride and Prejudice isn't the classic will they or won't they? It's a much deeper question. Can I even trust what I think I see? Think about it. Every single major turn in the plot happens because of a catastrophic misjudgment. The whole story is about the slow, painful work of fixing those initial, totally flawed perceptions. And Austen doesn't waste any time. She throws us right into this world of flawed judgment from the very first ball. And she shows us that first impressions aren't some kind of magical intuition. No, they're just dangerously incomplete sets of data. And here it is, the line, the infamous quote that kicks the whole story off. Darcy sees Elizabeth, runs her through his own internal algorithm of class, beauty, and social status, and spits out this just devastatingly dismissive verdict. Now, for Elizabeth, and for us reading along, this isn't just a rude comment. It becomes the primary piece of evidence. It's data point A in our case file on who Mr. Darcy is. He's proud. He's arrogant. Case closed. Or so we think. The really crucial insight here isn't just that Darcy's a snob. I mean, he is, but it's that his whole system for evaluating people is broken. It's a filter he uses to see the world. And as he admits later, it's a filter built on pride and conceit. It's a system that is basically guaranteed to make mistakes. But here's the genius of Jane Austen. Just as we're sitting there judging Darcy, she flips it. She shows us Elizabeth doing the exact same thing. She runs the Bingley sisters through her own system, one that values wit and authenticity. And she finds them to be proud, and conceded she's using the same flawed process as Darcy, just with different criteria. So this is the world Austen drops us into. It's not a world of good judges and bad judges. It's a world where the very act of judging another person is filled with traps. Everybody has their own biases. They're all working with limited information, and they are all rushing to conclusions that are almost always completely and utterly wrong. Okay, so let's dissect these flawed systems a little bit. Because Austen doesn't just give our characters emotional flaws. She gives them totally different intellectual frameworks for how to see the world. And each one has its own logic and its own crippling blind spot. You see this clash perfectly with Mr. Collins's proposal. Elizabeth rejects him based on her framework, which is all about personal worth and, not wanting to marry a ridiculous person. But her friend Charlotte Lucas, she's operating on a completely different system, pure economic pragmatism. For her, marriage isn't about love. It's about survival. It's a home. It's security. And in the brutal logic of her world, her choice is just as rational as Elizabeth. And listen to Elizabeth's reaction. She says it's unaccountable. It's so telling. She literally cannot compute Charlotte's decision because it doesn't fit into her model of how the world should work. She sees it as this huge betrayal, not as a logical move inside a different, much harsher set of rules. It just shows the limits of her own perspective. And then we have Darcy's system. Ah man, this impossible checklist for what makes an accomplished woman. It isn't just a list of preferences, it's this rigid, almost algorithmic standard that's basically designed to find fault with everyone. It's a system of judgment built for one purpose: exclusion. And Elizabeth's comeback here is just so brilliant, because she doesn't just disagree with his list, she attacks the absurdity of the system itself. She's pointing out that his framework is so ridiculously demanding that it's not even a useful way to understand people anymore. It's just a monument to his own arrogance. So, we've seen how the characters get each other wrong, but here's where Austen goes to the next level. She designs the book to make us, the readers, do the very same thing. She masterfully invites us to make these quick, easy judgments, and then slowly but surely, she just pulls the rug right out from under us. I mean, think about our first take on some of these characters. We love Mr. Bennet, right? He's witty and sarcastic. We immediately trust Mr. Wickham, the handsome guy with the sad story. And we write off Lydia as just a silly, harmless flirt. But every single one of these first impressions is a trap, and Austen laid it for us on purpose. Take Mr. Bennet. We're charmed by his wit, but Austen forces us to look again. His famous sarcasm is actually a symptom of his total failure as a parent. He uses wit to check out of his responsibilities. He just sits back and is amused by his family's chaos instead of actually doing anything. His detachment isn't wisdom, it's negligence. And it's only when Lydia's elopement threatens to ruin the whole family that he's shocked into action. His wit was a dangerous luxury. And the whole Wickham storyline is Austen's masterclass in confirmation bias. You know our tendency to believe things that confirm what we already think. Wickham gives Elizabeth this perfectly crafted, emotionally satisfying story that fits her prejudice against Darcy like a glove. So she buys it, hook, line, and sinker. It's only when Darcy gives her new contradictory data in that famous letter that her whole worldview comes crashing down. And that moment, reading the letter, that's the true climax of the novel. It's not a wedding proposal. It's a moment of agonizing self-realization. Elizabeth is horrified, not just by what Wickham did, but by the fact that she was so completely, devastatingly wrong. She realizes her prejudice wasn't just about disliking one guy. It was a fundamental flaw in how she saw the world. She chose the easy story over the true one. So, why does this 200-year-old novel about country dances and who owns what property still feels so incredibly urgent? Well, it's because the central problem Austen was writing about, the crisis of trying to know people with limited information, has never ever been more intense. I mean, just think about our daily lives. We scroll through feeds, we swipe on profiles, we read headlines, and we're constantly making huge judgments based on the tiniest slivers of curated information. We are all Elizabeth Bennet at that first ball, thinking we can size someone up in a single glance. Austen's world, with all its bonnets and carriages, is basically a perfect mirror for our own. And you can really hear the change in Elizabeth in this quote. This is not the witty, self-assured girl from the beginning of the book. This is someone who has been humbled, someone who's learned the hard way that surfaces are almost always deceiving and that people are messy and complicated. It's a sadder view of the world, for sure, but it's also a much wiser one. And Darcy goes through the exact same thing. He's forced to look past his own bad behavior and actually examine the system that created it. He realizes his pride wasn't just a personality flaw, it was the product of a lifetime of privilege that he never once questioned. For both of them, real growth, real knowledge, starts with admitting they were profoundly ignorant, especially about themselves. And so, the novel leaves us with something far more unsettling than a love story. Yes, there's a wedding. Yes, there's a happy ending. But Austen never actually solves the deeper problem. She exposes it. Because beneath the romance, Pride and Prejudice is asking a much bigger question. How do we know what we think we know? If our judgments are shaped by our upbringing, our pride, our insecurities, our social position, if all of that filters what we see, can we ever truly see another person clearly? Or is growth simply learning how wrong we've been? Maybe the real triumph of this novel isn't that Elizabeth finds the right partner. Maybe it's that she becomes the kind of person who can admit she misjudged someone. And maybe that's the harder love story. If you enjoyed this deeper look at Pride and Prejudice, let me know by hitting the like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe if you want more readings that go beyond the surface of great books. And tell me in the comments, do you think this novel is ultimately about love or about misjudgment? And what book should we take apart next?